networking group in all of Denver. I'm sorry, in all of Phoenix. So I'm really hoping that we can do that here. And our goal is to really help you as the job seeker, or if you are a person who's currently employed who just wants to get that career promotion, this is definitely the conversation for you. Again, Yvette is my virtual assistant. She will be monitoring the chat room. And today we have Nicki Cutler. Nicki, do you want to say hi?
Hi, everyone. Thanks for coming.
And Jill Fowler. Jill, we can't hear you.
Sorry, I put myself on mute. Hi, everyone. Good to see you.
Awesome. Okay. Since this is all about networking, if you would like to put your LinkedIn profile address in the chat box, please do. Let people know what you're looking for. Let us know how we can help you, because that is why we are doing what we're doing. We are here to help you through the pandemic, help you through all of the difficulties that this unprecedented economy has right now going on for us. Okay, I'm going to share my screen in just a moment. Again, I'm Chelle Johnson. I am the CEO and founder of the Best You Career Advantage, and I am going to get us started with, I come from a corporate background where I was Fortune 50 Director of Talent Acquisition for companies like Lockheed Martin and Comcast, and also Banner Health and Sonora Quest Laboratories. I am a professional in human resources and a lean certified recruiter. And I'm also a target selection interview coach, which means if you're having any interview questions or you just want to know how to land your interview, that's what I'm certified in. I'm also very, very passionate about diversity, equity, and inclusion. And we would like to welcome our military spouses, veterans, and personnel. Also, on our panel today, we have Nicki Cutler, who is a current talent partner at Twilio. And Nicki and I became good friends when she actually applied for a job to work for me at Lockheed Martin. And even though that didn't work out, networking and nurturing relationships and friendship is how she and I really developed our relationship. She is an expert and a rock star with sales, marketing, life sciences, and is going to give her perspective as a current recruiter who is working with candidates and job positions every day. Also on our panel today, we have Jill Fowler, and Jill and I met through networking. Again, on LinkedIn. When I came here 5 years ago, I was the talent acquisition manager at Sonora Quest Laboratories in Arizona. And I started networking with people in the healthcare field. And Jill is a lead recruiter at HCA Healthcare. She is a former talent acquisition program manager at Leader at Centura Health. And she is the person who is in charge of all the new grad residencies. And so think about the impact that COVID's having on all of the nurses. And so we have a really great forum for you today. I'm just admitting a few more people. We have a great group with us. So we're going to take you through. Can you guys all see my presentation okay?
Mm-hmm.
Thumbs up. Okay. So I'm Chelle, we have Nicki, and we also have Jill. So the three of us have gotten together and we've created this forum for you as a job seeker, or just as a person who is in a job who wants to get promoted and is really tired of feeling paralyzed, lost, disconnected, and disengaged. We hope that through the next hour that we can share with you a no-holds-barred conversation of a recruitment conversation behind the recruitment curtain. You guys ready? Can I get a thumbs up?
Thumbs up.
All right, awesome. The first question that I get from so many people is, Chelle, can you talk about, there are so many types of resumes. There's 1,000 opinions on resumes. What do you believe is the best type of resume, and what gets your attention the most? So what we're going to do through this is I'm going to start the conversation and lead the conversation, and then Jill and Nicki are going to chime in with their ideas as well. This is really for you. Take notes, take screenshots, listen to whatever you need to get you to the next level, to amplify and boost your connection and boost your job search. Again, first question, there are so many types of resumes. So for me, I actually have a professional resume writer who works for me. And we have done resumes from students all the way up to C-suite, like the head of sustainability at Schlumberger. The best types of resumes for me are those that directly align with the job description, that have the key words for the job description, and that show specific metric-driven accomplishments of what you've done. Now, at the top of your resume, you have to have a well-written summary of your career. Not just, and never, ever, ever use I statements on your resume. As recruiters and as a leader in recruitment that's led director level positions, I want to know what you've done. I want to know what outcomes you've had. I want to know what you've succeeded at. I want to know what your community impact is and how you have been of service to others in the community. So very metrics driven, accomplishment based, chronological, that really shows what you have done. Now, sometimes you might have job hopped, or in this economy, you were laid off because of COVID. It's okay to say that, and it's okay to own that you were laid off because of COVID. Just make sure that your LinkedIn page is optimized to really represent who you are as a candidate. Make sure that it has keywords, skills, and endorsements and recommendations. That's what's going to help make you a top candidate. Nicki, what do you think, or what are your favorite type of resumes, and what do you believe really stands out for you as a recruiter?
You made some great points there, Shelley. So I'd love to touch on the first point that you made about talking about if you were laid off due to COVID or for other reasons. I see this. So I was in this position myself, and I really clearly stated on my resume and also on my LinkedIn profile that the company that I worked for had a reduction in force due to COVID-19. That's how I phrased it. And those were the circumstances for my employment being ended. Another way you can talk about it in an interview, I hear people do this a lot, is the company had layoffs and my layoff was not due to performance. Those are a couple ways that you can speak about it. I know it's not easy, but let's be honest, a lot of us have been in that position, and it's possible that you might speak to a recruiter like me who has been laid off themselves in the last 12 months. So you may not be alone. Pivoting to resumes, that real estate up at the top, that section up at the top of your resume is prime real estate. And I can see I'm getting some nods here. So choose wisely. I personally am not a fan of tons of generic words and descriptions about I'm motivated, I'm passionate, I'm a leader, things like that. Those things all may be true, but they don't tell me much about you as an individual. So I'm looking for what's different or unique about the way that you achieve success. Next thing I'd like to touch on that Shelley talks about is certifications and keywords. All certifications and keywords are not created equal. So again, my advice would be, rather than feeling like you have to have 20 keywords and 20 certifications, I'd rather see 5 to 10 that are highly relevant. And we can touch on this more later, but if I'm hiring a solutions engineer, or if I'm hiring a salesperson to sell capital equipment into large hospital networks, then IDNs and GPOs and some information about the type of selling technique you use and the type of equipment that you are selling or the industry that you are working in are highly relevant to me. But generic, healthcare or life sciences or solution selling, if I search for those words, I'm going to get thousands of people that are using those terms, and it's not going to tell me a lot about what you as an individual bring to the table. So those are a couple of my thoughts.
Awesome, thank you. Jill, anything to add here?
So as Shelley had mentioned when she introduced me, I work with new nurses. So our residency programs are strictly for registered nurses who have just recently graduated. One of the things that I look for, if you do not have work experience in the field and you're like making a career move and you're changing your field, is to put whatever is most relevant up at the top. So for nurses, if they haven't been working as a nurse, then I want to see their education first. I also recommend that you have two different types of resumes. You have one that you use to electronically apply that is just clean, no fancy formatting. Save it as a PDF, because when you upload it into the applicant tracking system, you want to make sure that your pagination doesn't get all, discombobulated. And that real estate at the top of the page, you want to make sure that your name, your address, your phone number, the ways for us to get a hold of you is at the very top, easy to see. There's lots of fancy formats out there where they've got it on the side. I've even seen it as a footer. Don't do that. The most important thing is, how do we get a hold of you? So make sure that's up there. I usually like to tell candidates there's like two stopping points in the job seeking process. When you're applying for a job, are you getting an interview? If you're not, you've got to go back and look at that resume. If you're getting the interview, but you're not getting a job offer, we've got to go back and look at your interview. So if you feel like you're not making progress in getting interviews, go back and look at your resume and see if you need to make some adjustments.
Can I touch on a couple of things from that? Jill, I think you made a great point there. Do the same for your LinkedIn profile. Not everyone knows this, but there's a contact tab on your LinkedIn profile. If you'd rather be contacted by email, put your email in there. Recruiters will use that. And same thing with your LinkedIn profile. Use that real estate up towards the top, especially if you're a job seeker. Tell me about what roles you're looking for, what you bring to the table. And then last piece is, I like what Jill said about have your resume that you're submitting, but a cover letter, particularly if you don't have in-depth career experience or you don't have work experience. So with Shelley, for example, I was looking to pivot into another area. And so I used a cover letter and then sent it directly to Shelley through a couple channels. And I said, listen, hey, Shelley, I understand that I may not have exactly the experience that you're looking for in this role, but I mapped the skills and experience that I did have directly to the role that I was seeking. And I gave her 3 to 5 bullets. I said, if you'd be interested in talking with me, if you'd give me the opportunity to elaborate how these things apply to your job, I'd love to have a conversation. Guess what? She followed up. We talked about it. She gave me a chance, which she probably wouldn't have if I hadn't done that in addition to my resume. And then we built a relationship that I don't even know how many years we're going on now. I think it's probably 5 years.
Yeah, it's been a while. So like we said, you're going to get a whole lot more from this conversation. The next slide is for Nicki. She's going to kick it off with this. There's some really popular buzzwords out there like product management, go to market, customer obsession. What are the keywords, the common keywords that are seen, and what's bleeding edge right now? Nicki, what are your thoughts on that?
So I think this is kind of industry specific, and I think this is where tailoring is really important. So if it's okay, if someone can give us an example of a job they're looking at or an industry that they're trying to break into, I can speak to that. So I'm working in the tech industry, for example. Scaling is a big buzzword in the tech industry. Scaling, growing dramatically, adaptable, things that relate to operating at a good clip effectively, being able to pivot and be nimble, be adaptable. Those types of things I see a lot. But what I would caution you towards is think about putting that into context. What does that mean? How does that apply to the role that you're seeking? And how can you give concrete examples of how that applies to the role? So really quickly, in my world, when I was seeking to work for a company like Twilio that's scaling dramatically, we doubled our workforce last year. I in my resume gave some examples of sales expansions that I worked on, and I provided concrete examples of I needed to hire X number of people in X number of days to accomplish this result. So that's an example of how you can go beyond something like product management that's kind of generic, put it into context, and really tie it to a specific company and role that you are seeking. Does anyone have questions about that? I want to make sure that I was clear in the way that I communicated that point.
Nicki, I think that's awesome. Jill, what are your thoughts on this?
So Nicki started off with, buzzwords are typically industry driven. And so just be careful when you've got acronyms or things that are in your resume, that they're applicable to the job description that you're actually applying to, and you want to make sure that you're using them in the correct way. And it is constantly changing. Some of the things that we're looking for specifically with COVID right now is individuals who can be adaptable, that are quick to adjust to things that are changing very quickly. So not necessarily buzzwords, but qualities and characteristics that our hiring managers are more focused on right now. Asking questions about self-care and making sure that they understand how to do work-life balance so that they don't burn out. And again, like Nicki had said, when you're reflecting those types of qualities and traits in your resume, backing it up with evidence of what you've done in your past performance, is how you can substantiate what you're saying is truly more than just fluff.
So real quick, Mara, I hope I'm pronouncing your name correctly. You said you're in the communications industry and public affairs. This is a great example. So that's a very broad area. And in working and hiring for those types of roles, one thing that I've actually found that can kind of narrow down and tailor for a job is sometimes companies are looking for individuals that have worked for similar companies. So maybe in the same industry, like a tech company or a rapidly growing or expanding company, just because of the way they behave and operate, and sort of that's the world they know. And then I find often in like communications, marketing, and project management roles also, if you contextualize it, so maybe they have a key project or a key initiative that they are seeking to undergo, and that role is really going to play a key part in that. If you can speak to how you have undergone a similar initiative or project and really made an impact with that, that's a great way to get attention, and to also really speak to how you as an individual can bring value to that role. I hope that's helpful.
Nicki, Jill, those are awesome tips. Thank you so much. Let's jump to our next question. And Jill, you're going to lead this one. Does the person who brings the most enthusiasm and the best attitude to the interview get the job? And this, what we're looking for here is based on if the skills and the experience are comparable. What are your thoughts on that?
So I think what's more important is that you kind of use your emotional intelligence and just be aware of who you're speaking with and adapt your energy level to that interviewer. And I think it's more important for you to have done some research and be able to talk intelligently about facts of the organization that you would be working for or that you're interviewing for, and how their mission statement or their core values align with your own, so that they know that you're very engaged and you're very interested in this particular opportunity. That research is going to far outweigh any kind of enthusiasm and excitement. Obviously, we do get leaders that will, well, she just didn't seem very engaged, didn't know a whole lot about our hospital. You want to have your own personality style, you want to have your own energy level, but you certainly want to bring it to what the level of the interviewers are exhibiting, so that you can match their energy. I don't think it's going to be a deal breaker, but if you're disengaged, if you don't know about the organization, then obviously somebody who has done that homework is probably going to have a better chance than you are.
I completely agree with you, Jill. In fact, when I led talent for Sonora Quest, we would ask, how do your values match those of the companies? And you have to be able to resonate those values with your professional values and the personal values of how that aligns with the mission and vision of the business. And we're going to talk a little bit about pet peeves of recruiters. One of my major pet peeves is when companies or when candidates don't do that research and don't know something about the products, the business, the people who they're interviewing with. That level of disengagement, your job right now as a candidate is to really resonate well virtually. And so we're going to talk in a little bit about how do you resonate in the best way virtually, but those values, researching the company, but also knowing yourself, meaning knowing your own resume and those selected accomplishments that we talked about earlier, is really the most important thing about how you can be a candidate of choice. Nicki, any quick thoughts on this?
Completely agree. I think reading the room, reading your audience is really key right now with video. I think that's a great point.
Okay, awesome. Our next question is, should I apply to all positions of interest with the company, or does that send the wrong message to the recruiter? For example, does the recruiter see that I'm applying for everything and I'm not focused enough, or does it show that I'm really interested in the company and have transferable skills? So I get this question a lot from my clients, and as a recruiter and talent acquisition person, there's a couple different ways to look at this. First of all, my focus would be for you is not to just focus on job posting, but actually do the networking to find the hidden job market right now. That is where 85% of jobs are going to be for you. But when you are applying to roles, the companies, for example, might have multiple locations, multiple hiring managers, different positions that you are applying for. What you do not want to do is have this shotgun approach where you don't meet the min quals, or you're just shooting for any position that's open in that company because you hear it's a good company. You have to focus your resume and apply for roles where there's an 80% match. Let me say that again. Sometimes women don't apply to roles because they don't feel that they are the perfect match. I highly recommend that if you think you're going to be good for the role and you meet the min quals and you are focused on that role, that you should apply for those positions. You also have to think about, let's say that there's an opening for a sales representative in Denver posted 1 week, and then in a week from now, there's another one posted, and then in 2 weeks, there's another one posted. You should apply to all of those because there might be different recruiters that are aligned to each of those positions. What you don't want to do is turn recruiters off by just shotgunning it, applying to everything, not reading the job description. And in some aspects where you may have applied to one position, interviewed for it, but not gotten chosen, maybe you were the second candidate or the silver bronze candidate, in those instances, the recruiter might actually tell you, go ahead and apply to these other positions. So for me, I think you have to be very focused on it. Do apply to positions that you're specifically interested in and leverage the contacts that you're making through recruiters. One of my clients applied to a position at Roche. He got quite far in the application process. He didn't end up getting that position, but the recruiter stated, I'm happy to send your resume over to different hiring leaders. And so those are just some different ideas for you. Nicki or Jill, any thoughts on this question?
Yes. This is like dating. Okay, think of it like dating. If you found out that someone that you were dating was also dating 10 other people, or you were on an app and they were reaching out to 20 people, would that be as appealing to you as if they were looking to maybe get to know a handful of people, or putting all their attention into you? Maybe that's not the best example, but that's one way to look at this. And then I guess as a recruiter, anytime someone shows a particular interest in the organization, the company itself, and the type of role, that's really attractive to me. One other thought I have for you, and this is something that I've done myself, is sometimes when a company like Twilio, for example, large company, lots of different teams. Initially when I first tried to apply for a role there, it was hard for me to figure out which teams had the needs, which team I might be working with, and how to develop relationships within that team to pursue a role as a recruiter. So one piece of advice that I have for you is, if you find a company that you are really interested in, but it's hard for you to tell which team or which group within that company that you would be working with, and an approach you could take is try to reach out to someone, either a recruiter or some people that you might be able to network in with. And if you're seeing more than one role, say, I'm trying to learn about which teams I would be working with, or who a good person to build a relationship would be, and how to best pursue that opportunity. Because what you might find is maybe you're not the right fit for one team, but you would be a good fit for another team. If you can network that way and pursue the opportunity that way, that could actually be really impactful.
Awesome, thank you. I want to be conscientious of time. There's some questions coming into chat that we will absolutely get to. Let's go on to our next question. And Nicki, it's for you. How should candidates appropriately and effectively communicate their value proposition and align with key criteria for the role?
So I think this is where tailoring really comes in. From a resume and an application standpoint, do your research on the company, their values, key initiatives that they're pursuing. So for example, Twilio, it's a company that's growing rapidly. So it was easy for me as a recruiter candidate to align around, you're trying to double the size of your sales force in a short amount of time. I've worked in your space, I've worked in your industry, I've hired for the roles that you are hiring for, and I can give you specific examples about how I've done that quickly. If that's something that would interest you, I'd love to have a conversation. So make it, I can't remember how you phrased it, Chelle, but I remember I talked to you when I was applying and you said, listen, if you're going to reach out and you're really going to go after the role, be ready to back it up and show them that you understand who they are as a company and you understand the role they have. You've been there, you've done that. You don't know everything about it. You don't want to come across as a know-it-all, but in this case, I need to just show that I could hit the ground running and make an impact for this company in 30 to 60 days, because this was a company that needed impact in 30 to 60 days versus 12 months.
Wow, thank you. Jill, I'd love to hear your thoughts on this.
I think it kind of coincides with the previous, when I was saying, researching the organization and being very thoughtful and mindful about the positions that you are applying to, so that they do align and you're not creating a brand of yourself. This is who you are as an individual genuinely, and targeting those specific opportunities and organizations that you would work with. That'll make it easy for you and it will flow for you. That would be mine.
That word authenticity and being genuine is so important now. That's what companies are looking for, from that emotional connection. Nobody wants to hire or work with a robot. They want to know who you are, but you have to make it appropriate. And I love what Nicki said earlier about show how you can make an impact and offer immediate value now. What is your 30-day, your 60 and your 90-day plan? How do you meet the pain points of the company or the growth points of the company? And you are the solution to the employer's problem. That's what companies are looking for. Okay, next question is for Jill to lead. What do you recommend if recruiters are not getting back to you after you reach out? I cannot tell you, I have so many people who ask me this. I've interviewed or I've networked, they're not getting back to me. There's this black hole. And then how many days should a candidate wait to get back in touch with you as a recruiter? And then when should they approach, or how should they approach you when there's been no communication?
Yeah, thank you. So in my line of work, a lot of times we will get like a really high applicant volume. And so it is hard to, get back to everybody. We do have what's called a service level agreement. And so we have like time frames that we need to move forward, like either reaching out to the hiring manager or reaching out to candidates and making sure that we're not letting any one person sit stagnant for too long. And so most organizations will have some sort of rule of thumb or, procedure that recruiters are supposed to follow to kind of keep candidates warm, keep managers kind of on the ball and moving forward in the hiring process. So hopefully you don't get stuck into that black hole. One of the things that we recommend, especially if you're like applying to a number of different positions, is to keep a spreadsheet. Make sure that you write down the requisition number, any pertinent information that you feel like you might need to circle back, specifically a point of contact in that requisition. I know that we will typically have a name and an email address that you can follow up with. A lot of times there's not that. And so it truly is a black hole. You don't even know who to reach out to, if you don't have that information. There's usually like a general inquiry line that you can ask, for status and that sort of thing. A lot of your applicant tracking systems are sophisticated enough that you create a profile, and then you can go into your profile and it will show you the status of your application. Your unique ways of trying to find someone and following up would be LinkedIn. That's your professional network. It's expected that people are communicating and connecting for the purpose of a new opportunity, versus other social media outlets. So definitely I would recommend that you keep it to a professional platform, whether it be at a career fair, or LinkedIn, or direct email, depending on the information that you can get from them. I like to say give it a good week and a half if you hadn't heard anything. Reaching out after you've applied within 24 hours is probably not going to, a recruiter gets stuck into, do I review resumes or do I respond to my email? And so, we have to stay focused on what we're doing. And so, that's just going to slow us down if you're, constantly trying to request what your status is and, we don't know which way to go.
Thank you. Nicki, I'd love to hear your perspective on this.
So a couple of thoughts. I agree with what Jill said. A lot of times when you don't hear back or you don't get information, it's because there's high volume. So I don't know about you right now, Jill, but let's say the last 6 to 12 months, I've seen 3 to 5 times the number of applicants applying for roles in process than previously. And I'd love to tell you I had 3 to 5 times as much support and time to get back to everyone, but unfortunately, I don't. So a lot of times it's just things get bogged down, or sometimes it's ambiguity. I think one of the most common times people don't hear back is, maybe I, as a recruiter, have asked other stakeholders within the organization for the information that I need to be able to communicate a clear decision or a message to a candidate, and I just don't have that information yet. I really try when I can to say, listen, I'm still waiting on the information. I'll get back to you as soon as I have it. But I think one thing that candidates can do is they can make it easy for the stakeholders that they're trying to get in touch with. Hey, it's been 5 days since I interviewed. I continue to be very interested in this opportunity. It's possible that you haven't had a chance to meet as a group and make a decision, but I wanted to follow up and see if there's any new information. If there isn't, please just let me know, no news yet. And, should I follow back up with you? But sometimes if you put the information clearly in the message that you're reaching out for, so what are you looking for? ABC. If you haven't heard back from 2 weeks, I'm guessing that one of 3 things has happened. You've chosen someone, you still haven't made a decision, or something has changed in terms of what's going on with this role. If you make it easy and give someone an ABC, 9 times out of 10, you'll get a response quickly. Whereas if you just say, hey, following up, you might not get a response.
Those are both awesome. Awesome. Thank you. What Jill said is there are service level agreements for recruiters, but right now the market is so saturated with a variety of candidates that they're receiving 3 to 5 times is what they're used to receiving. I have a job search log that I'm more than happy to send out to you so that you can keep track of everyone. Please reach out to me if you are interested in that. Having a point of contact within the business, whether it's the hiring manager, the leader, the recruiter, please make sure that that is what you are doing to reach out to folks, and that you have that professional point of contact. And you have to be relevant. You have to do exactly what Nicki's talking about. When there isn't communication, maybe send an article, not just following up on, hey, I applied for this job, I'm not hearing back. Recruiters don't have time to cut through all of those different messages, and you're not being current and relevant if you are just sending those types of messages. Did you see something that happened in the media? Was there somebody who was promoted that you want to congratulate? Is there something that's happening in the community that you want them to know about? Make sure that they're hearing your relevancy, your way that you're boosting your own candidacy is by showing consistent and relevant knowledge on that business. I see a lot of people shaking their heads. So one of the questions that came through is, how often should someone be reaching out to a recruiter if they are hearing back? Like, let's say they're moving on to 2nd step or 3rd step, but then they haven't heard something for a while. Jill, really quickly, what's your thought on that?
Well, yeah, depending on where you are in the step, I wouldn't wait more than a week. Like if you've interviewed and you're waiting to hear back, I would definitely either by the end of that week or the beginning of the next week to reach out and just check in on the status. And like Nicki had said, the more defined you can be in your request, then the more likely you'll get a response back that will answer your question versus, hey, just checking if the decision's been made. May not give you the exact answer that you're looking for. Just allows the recruiter to be vague right back.
2 other quick tips, if you don't mind on this. One, sometimes changing channel. And I like what Jill said about you need to make sure that you're doing so professionally and with courtesy. But if you have gone from email to phone relationship with the recruiter, and the recruiter is communicating feedback to you over the phone, if you haven't heard back for a week, reach out over the phone if you have a work phone number for that person. It's a great pattern interrupt. Sometimes the email inbox just gets bogged down. And then Jill and Shelly, I don't know about you guys, but as a recruiter, I time block. During the day, I'm really busy interviewing candidates, talking to them, but my catch-up times are early in the morning, and then, after 5 o'clock, let's say, that's when I'm catching up on my emails or my other messages. So guess what? If you send me a message, let's say you send it to me at night and it's in the top of my inbox in the morning when I do my admin, your chance of getting a response back is going to be greater than if you send me a message at 10 o'clock in the morning when I'm in the midst of talking to people on the phone.
Thank you so much. We spend a little more time on this question because it is one of the main heartbreaking things for candidates when they don't hear back, when they're not networking and they're putting their whole effort into reaching out. And so we do understand how that feels. Just know that the recruitment teams are inundated and saturated, and the more personal, relevant, effective that you can make it, the better. And then going off of what Nicki said is, if you are in the process and you actually have a phone number for that person, texting is new and relevant, and texting is the new email. I see Jill and Nicki shaking their heads, especially for iGens or millennials or Xers. Very, very common to text that person, and then you get a much quicker response. Let's
You're
go on.
allowed to ask what the best way to get a hold of people is too. I think that's something that isn't done enough. Like Shelly, you and I, we talk to each other about that. Like, hey, if I need to get a response from you quickly, like what's the best way? And you're allowed to do that in the interview process with hiring managers and with recruiters. Like, is it okay for me to follow up with you? What's the best channel to use?
That's you as a candidate actually controlling your communication with them. I do want to get to a few more questions. The next one is, what are some pet peeves of recruiters? And I want to put this out there just so you as the job seekers know how to be proactively persistent without being pesty. None of us likes that pesty person. Some of the pet peeves, first of all, never lie on your application or your resume, because that's just falsification of documentation, and you're going to get fired because of that. We've mentioned it before. If you are not prepared for the interview, if you don't know the best way to reach out to nurture a relationship, that lack of preparation or just cutting and pasting notes to get volume of in-mails sent out on LinkedIn, that is not going to net you the return on your investment that you want. You need to be very particular and come up with a very professional, relevant note to me or to Jill or to Nicki, and showing us why you're interested. Know about our business, know about our products, know about the company. And when you don't, we're going to just skim over you and not really look, because we have so many other things that are coming. Lack of class and professionalism is a huge pet peeve for me, and I see Jill shaking her head. We understand what it is to be on the other side because we've looked for jobs as well. But please be professional with us. Give us your respect and your gratitude. And that emotional connection that you make with us as recruiters is going to go a long way. The more that you can get to know us as people and thank us and think of us as business partners, not just paper pushers. We are not paper pushers. We are business partners to the business, and we know exactly what our hiring managers are looking for. If you don't treat us as so, that's really not going to allow you to be someone that we want to promote and that we want to recruit into our company. Name dropping. It's nice that you went to the same school, but please don't name drop of, oh, I know this person and I know that person. And it's nice, but too much of it is kind of annoying. Please virtually, don't be smoking or eating on the phone or texting. When you are present with a recruiter, now mind you, I have a 13-year-old working upstairs. I've been homeschooling. We're all in our basements or working from home, and we get that type of thing, but don't be eating or kind of in like a bad environment. And then don't apply for every job. Like we talked about, be very specific of what you apply to anyway, those are some of my pet peeves. And Jill, I'd love to hear from you. What are some of your pet peeves?
So your resume is your first impression, and any typos in the resume, it just, it's like that first date. And, if this is your best impression on paper and it just goes down from there, is going to be a really good reason why we wouldn't move forward with your resume. And that's not necessarily the recruiter, but definitely the hiring manager. They definitely look at it that way. And autocorrect is, a necessary evil. You definitely have to edit your resume after you've done autocorrect, because like CNA in our industry turns into a can. And that's like the first one that, I see it all the time, just jumps out on me like it's in 3D. So you definitely want to have a second set of eyes on that resume and make sure you have no typos.
Thank you. We're running a little bit short on time, so I want to make sure that we get to a couple of other questions as well. And Jill, since we are having you out there right now, I want to skip to this question because I think it's really relevant right now since we're in virtual environments. How can a candidate assess if the culture is a good fit when they can't actually go to the company and interview, or they're meeting the team virtually and not in person? What do you recommend for that?
Right. Yeah. So in our industry and in the healthcare field, we typically do a behavioral based interview. So your past performance is your best predictor of future behavior. And so hiring managers will ask you situational questions. Tell me about a time when. And so when they ask you, do you have any questions for me? That's your opportunity to interview them. And you want to make sure that the questions that you're asking the hiring manager are thoughtful and that they will give you information that will help you determine whether or not this is going to be a good opportunity for you, and that you can align with their management style or what the flow of the unit or the department looks like. So making sure that you ask some questions, like the one that I always use kind of as a good example is, a lot of times I'll have candidates ask me, well, why did you join HCA? What made you want to come work for HCA? Well, that answer is very different than if someone asks me, what gets you excited about coming into work in the morning? Why I work for HCA, I'm going to launch into benefits, the size of the organization, the flexibility to work remotely. It's going to be very benefit driven. But if you ask me why I get excited to come into work today, I'm going to say, I get to do what I love. I get to talk to people all day long. They have to listen to me. I enjoy meeting new people, and it's a challenge to find them the right fit. So you see how there's the two differences. So you want to make sure the way you ask the question is going to get the information that you need to make that assessment whether or not it's a good fit for you.
Very good. Thank you. We have a lot of questions coming in on the chat, and I want to make sure that we have time to answer some of those.
Billy, can I add one thing really fast about the culture?
Oh my gosh, Nicki, please. Thank you.
Someone asked me this the other day. Talk to other people in the organization. That's one of the best ways that you can find out what it's really like to work there. And if you don't know someone there, see if you can network in, or even ask. Say, listen, I'm really interested in this role. Would it be okay if I talk to someone else on the team? Say someone who would be a peer in that role. If the company, you want to do this late in the interview process, but if the company isn't willing to let you do that, that's a huge red flag. And I think that's one of the best ways you can really find out if a place is a good fit culturally.
Thank you.
Well, one of the things that you can, just adding on to what Nicki said, one of the things that you can do on LinkedIn is if you look up the company, it will say X number of employees. These are employees that have profiles on LinkedIn. You can click on that and you can see those individuals. And so if, like I encourage nurses, well, look for that nurse that works on the med-surg unit at that hospital and reach out to them. And that gives you an opportunity to build rapport, and they may even go back the next day, tell their boss, hey, so-and-so reached out to me. Weren't you interviewing them? Because it will show that you're doing your research and that you're really engaged and interested in the opportunity.
100% agree.
Awesome. Okay. I put it so that we can have more participation, and I hope that all of you have gotten something from the awesome insights from both Jill and Nicki. And so Jill and Nicki, thank you. We're so grateful for that. And so I'd like to just answer some of the questions in the chat room. And one of them that jumped out to me is, what percentage of the jobs that are posted actually are hired internally? And so Jill, I'll launch that one over to you.
So I think each organization might be a little bit different in that process. I know the company that I currently work for, regardless of whether it's an opportunity for an internal person, it's posted externally as well. But previous organizations that I've worked for, the hiring manager may say, I want this posted internally only to see if there's internal interest before I go external. So depending on the policies of that particular organization, you may not see those internals because they're going to keep those internal and see if they can fill it then. And if they can't then they would post it externally to look for it. So I don't know that I could put a number on it. Obviously, you want to work for an organization that will consider internal, succession. You want to grow with an organization. So I think it's a good thing that they do consider internals, but I don't know that you can put a percentage on it.
Ask though, if you're interviewing, ask, are you considering any internal applicants? Are any internal applicants in consideration for this role? And then always objection handle. Is there anything that would give you pause or concern about my ability to be successful in this role? That's your opportunity to dig a little deeper and speak to what you could bring as an external.
Nicki,
so I want to tag. Oh, sorry, I just wanted to tag on. This is kind of a geeky thing I do, but I surf YouTube and I look for nurses that might have a blog or something. And I came across these two nurses that do talk about like job seeking and that sort of thing. And what I love is just a different spin on what Nicki was saying. He says, what characteristics do you see in me that you looked for in your most recent hire? Or your most recent hire, what characteristics do you see in me that they possess? And so he's planting the seed that, hey, if I have those characteristics, you just hired somebody with those characteristics, so I'm your fit. I just love the wording on that. I think it's clever.
What does a top performer look like? What is someone who's in this role today and really successful? Tell me about that person. And guess what? Align yourself right around all those qualities that they've just told you lead to success in their organization.
Oh my gosh, you're blowing my mind with this. That's exactly what I was going to say is, instead of ending the interview, is there anything that is making you hesitate about hiring me? Turn it around and do what Jill just said, or say, help me understand what is exciting you about my background and the fit for me in this role. It's just making it end on a more positive note and making that emotional connection better. And if you're actually working with an outplacement company like Lee Hecht Harrison, the head of Lee Hecht Harrison for the Midwest, that's exactly the question that.
An example of my company, or in Jill's case, say you're applying to a large medical system, right? And Jill might say, you know what, you're not the right role to come and work in this department or on this team. Okay, Jill, I hear you. This is a health system that I'm really interested in for this particular reason. Do you know of any other teams that are either hiring now or going to be hiring in the near future? Jill, would you feel comfortable introducing me or sharing my background with someone else? And depending on the case, say, I'll make it really easy for you. Like can I frame up an email by way of introduction, and then will you send it to your teammate or whoever for me? Make it really easy for the person, but yes, perfectly appropriate. And guess what? You're showing me you're really interested, particularly in my organization. You want to be a part of my team, and you're just trying to figure out where the best fit is and what the best way for you to pursue that is. So absolutely.
Thank you. That's exactly how I would have answered it, Nicki. And so yes, but it's about that professionalism and that class and that intestinal fortitude and confidence and that bravery and that courage to ask the recruiter to do that, especially if you're aligning to the values of the company. Okay.
Can I just say really fast? I don't think enough people do that when they get a no. So if you're rejected, please start doing that, because I think it's appropriate, and I think it's possible that you could then be considered for another role.
So this conversation has gone so quickly. I just want to let you know that our next Denver Career Connector is going to be in 2 weeks on the 22nd of February, starting at 1 p.m. We have Elise Bloom, who is a nationally award-winning networking coach. She and I are going to be getting really deep into networking at its best, creating purposeful and effective networking strategies. So please go out there on my website, which is Best You Career Advantage, sign up for those events. We also will be putting them up on Meetup and really getting the word out, because we are here to help you do your best in finding a job quickly and amplifying your success. I'm going to keep this up. I'm also going to let you know how that you can reach out to Nicki, Jill, or me. LinkedIn is our best friend. And here's how you get in touch with all of us. I'm going to leave this up for a bit. We did have a few other questions. I saw one out there on JobScan. JobScan.com is a platform that you can use to look at the relevancy of your resume to the job description. It is definitely recommended, but it can be kind of expensive. The better that you get on your own at looking the job description and aligning your keywords to the job description, that consistency and that practice will do the same thing as JobScan, but JobScan is a good tool out there. Jill or Nicki, any other thoughts on JobScan or the best way for our audience to make sure that their resume is aligned to the job description?
Look at the position description. Usually they're going to tell you, what some of the key criteria are. One thing that I think you can really align around is, is there a key project? Is there a key initiative? Is there a key business objective that they're driving towards? So I talked about me as a recruiter. I work for a rapidly scaling tech company. How are we going to continue to grow and bring in revenue? We're going to hire more salespeople. So if I align myself as a sales recruiter, as someone who can help them achieve that goal, that's going to get attention. But I've got to back it up with some meat and some specific examples of how I've succeeded doing that, how I know that space, and how I can work effectively in the type of company that acts and behaves like the company that I'm looking for. Is that helpful?
Extremely.
The other thing I'd say really fast, because I know we're running out of time here, is when you do get on the phone, leverage live conversations with humans as much as possible. And it's okay for you to say, listen, I know recruiter or whoever, you have a limited amount of time to talk with me. I want to make the most out of that time. But is it okay with you if we begin our call by having a conversation about what are your key initiatives right now? Tell me about your business and what you're trying to accomplish and how this role plays a part in that. Is it okay if we quickly start there so that I can make the most of this conversation and I can share with you how my skills and experience apply to that? You're allowed to do that. And that for me is one of the most effective ways to begin a conversation and make the most of our time together. So whether it's a recruiter you're talking to, a hiring manager, an individual on that team, if I had one piece of advice for you, that is the most impactful thing that you were trying to get out of this process.
What Jill is talking about is called the spin. You are trying to spin that conversation so that you are learning as much as you can early on about what the pain points, the obstacles, the challenges are in the company. And your job as a recruiter, as a job seeker, is to figure out those pain points. So getting to it in the beginning of a phone call, at the beginning of an interview, is how you can be an impactful job seeker. If you are interested in learning more, I have on my events, I have networking coming up tomorrow. I also have Amplify Your Awesome. These are free webinars that are out there for you about how you can network with people like Jill and Nicki. We're here to help. We know that it's really difficult out there right now. Keep your head up. Keep your mental fitness strong. And don't let that inner critic kill you, paralyze you, and let that doubt get to you.
Hey
So-
guys, sorry, I was back to back.
No problem. Thank you, everyone. This is the end of our first call. Thank you, Nicki. Thank you, Jill. Thank you, everyone who dialed in. Take care and be well.